The times there are a-changing. Being able to view different aspects of society and to the world at large from a more global perspective is an advantage that not many hold. This ability can prove useful in a wide range of circumstances, from deciding which car to buy, what food to eat, to more macro-level ideas such as taxation and, in our case today, the death penalty. Many of us can agree that the world 100 years ago is quite different from nowadays. The world 100 years from now will similarly have large differences that are difficult to foresee. With that in mind, societal values and customs have been shown to also undergo significant shifts. Holding onto old-fashioned and out-of-time ideas can certainly be helpful to one's heart, but for society as a whole, can often be dangerous. For example, we no longer use cocaine as a widely used medicine. We no longer use lead in our paints. We wear seat belts. Charles Stimson, a senior legal fellow and manager at the National Security Law Program, wrote the death penalty serves three legitimate penological objectives, which are general deterrence, specific deterrence, and retribution. General deterrence here, he argues, that serves to deter potential criminals. Specific deterrence means that the criminal would no longer be alive to commit further crimes, and retribution would provide society as a whole to make a moral judgment by imposing a punishment. While a punishment with such finality would certainly provide for his first 2 points, there are a gray but not less significant intangible area when it comes to retribution. While Stimson agreed that sometimes there are a mistake about sentencing someone to death penalty by saying, sadly, mistakes can happen, it seems he perhaps has not put himself in the shoes of the opposing party. Would sadly mistakes can happen be an acceptable response when he finds himself at the gallows? Moaz Nair, in an opinion piece for Free Malaysia Today, writes that it's clear that jail has not been a successful deterrent in Malaysia. He cites multiple numbers to provide evidence for his stance, but fails to remember that on many occasions, it is not about what you say to someone, but how it is said. Well, if you tell a child not to eat a piece of candy, they will immediately want that piece of candy. But if you show the child how candy is made and bring them through the process, showing them the harms that sugar can do to their body, they will have a better understanding of what they are doing. This, of course, takes more time, but if the offender is imprisoned for a long time, they likely are not going to have any meetings to disrupt this process. In this way, we as a collective can provide for potential judicial mistakes while also reforming in a more humane manner. Some may still argue that this does not account for those whose minds are simply lacking in critical areas and have very little to no hope for reformation. Does that make them less than human? In a literal sense, no. In an elusive sense, perhaps. As a final, for you to reconsider about that sentence, here are an example about 10 innocent persons who were wrongly executed. Because of the time limit, I couldn't show you the video, but you may find it on the link here. And from these 10 innocent persons, let me mention just 3 of them that most interesting for me. Carlos de Luna. He was arrested and was executed because he made several eyewitness descriptions despite there being a lack of physical evidence linking him to the crime. 2 years later, the real murdered, who looked so similar with him and were often mistaken for twins, confessed to the killing. Next is Hook Jill. This 18-year-old guy tried to help a woman who were attacked and raped and called the police only to be arrested and accused for the crime himself. He found guilty and killed by firing squad. 9 years later, a serial rapist confessed to the crime and put Hung Jill innocent. His parents were offered only $4,300 in compensation. Lastly, the Griffin brothers. In 1913, Thomas and Mac Griffin were the two wealthiest black men in the county who owned over 130 acres of land. They were accused to kill 70 years old white men. The real murderer, Monk Stephenson, offered life sentence by police in exchange for testifying against Thomas and Max Griffin. An all-white jury and racist judge who disapproved of black people owning land sentenced them to death by electric chairs, despite no hard evidence against them. It was not until almost 1 year later that historians confirmed the Griffins were innocent. Humans do indeed tend to crave finality and retribution, but at what cost? This uneven and blurry line does not allow for enough strong and narrowly defined avenues for all parties to travel. As such, forcing evenness and focus cannot be seen as moral or human. We are a changing and unpredictable species after all.